PowerBoat Television. PowerBoat Television is sponsored by Sea-Doo. When it comes to recreation, there is no contest. Boats and Places magazine, available in print or digital versions. And Yamaha, conquer water.
The Niagara region is one of Canada's most famous sites, drawing tourists who come to see this and do a little of this. Or maybe it means something like this. This is a vibrant farming region, and one where my sister and brother-in-law are continuing his family's more than 200-year-old farming tradition. But to me, the Niagara region means this. A lot of this, and even something like this. In fact, this is as far as I made it when I came to visit. I called from the Beacon Marina and said, meet me here so I can show you your backyard from my water-based perspective. And thanks to Niagara Flyboard, based right in the marina, my perspective was a little different, albeit still water-based. And it's here that my sister Shauna and her husband Dave met my wife Jay and I. We had arrived the night before and stayed in the Beacon Marina, which has 105 slips and can accommodate boats up to 60 feet in length with a 12-foot draft. So I dried off after my so-called flight, and we headed up to the Beacon restaurant for lunch. The restaurant is a popular dinner hotspot because on a clear night, you can see Toronto's skyline across the lake. But the weekend lunch buffet is why we came. And we've got a lot to pack in, so it's time for a quick toast. Just with water for this one, we have to pace ourselves after all.
All right.
All right, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Good
it'll be
times
fun.
on the boat and seeing what you have to offer us.
And we will do a winery and or golf. I have an idea, actually.
And this is my idea. A 2-for-1, golf and winery all in one spot.
So we're actually located on the Jordan side of St. Catharines. So we're very conveniently located right off the major highway. The boat marinas aren't too far. Everything's within 10 to 15 minutes from here. Lots of accommodations.
Shauna drove us today, but she's not kidding. It was only a 10-minute drive from the water. Something very reasonable by cab, especially if you want to spend the whole day here, which you easily can. There's the small museum that shows you how wine used to be cultivated. There's the golf, which I definitely want to check out. And there's also the tasting. This is a winery after all.
You know, I think Dave and I are going to stay here and you guys can hit the links without us.
You're gonna stay here?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Have fun, children.
See you in a bit. What's next that we should sample?
Well, I think we should definitely sample this Syrah since it just won a very prestigious award.
Jay and I figured that not golfing in the Niagara region would be an absolute shame, so we took off. This is a little more relaxing than flyboarding. And as they did their sample shots of wine, we took our own shots. As they drained another glass, Jay drained another putt.
Nice.
As they just sampled more wine, and I've completely run out of golf wine metaphors. You may have heard of Rockaway Glen Golf, but now it's Rockaway Vineyards.
We're very well known in the area as a great golf course, but we're really known as a winery. So we didn't want people to think, oh, does that golf course make wine? We wanted to kind of branch out and be the award-winning winery that happens to be situated on a golf course.
Having the all-in-one stop works perfectly for groups like ours, so some can enjoy golf while others enjoy wine. A single cab ride if you arrive by boat like we did, or if you're trailer boating, it's just a short drive to one location, and keeping the group together is key for a fun vacation and for bragging.
Huh? You see that putt or what?
That was good. How was the game? How'd you shoot?
I was a solid 23 under.
Really?
Or something, I don't know, I wasn't counting.
Luckily, my bragging didn't ruin anyone's appetite because Rockaway is actually a 3-for-1 stop. The restaurant offers delicious fare and a stunning setting. Golf, wine, and dine, the Niagara trifecta. Heading out at dusk offers a stunning light show and some flat-as-glass running along the southern shores of Lake Ontario. An amazing experience on any lake, but on a massive one and having it all to yourself, well, just about, is truly incredible. As we tie up in the St. Catharines Marina, we have just enough light to get the canvas back on. Perfect timing. Stay tuned, our Niagara exploration gets a little wet later in the show.
Time for Power Profile, brought to you by BoatTest.ca.
Everglades Boat Company was launched in 1999, and in that first year of production, they won the prestigious Manufacturers Innovation Award. So how did a new company first start and do that? Well, that's because of their founder, Bob Doherty. He started his career in 1960 with Boston Whaler. So this week on Power Profile, we're going to take a look at a 2016 Everglades 230 center console that's a great example that showcases their innovation and design.
The all-new 230cc is the smallest craft in their 10-model lineup. Like her sister ships, she is built utilizing Everglades' Rapid Core Assembly Process, or RAMCAP. Essentially, this process utilizes a CNC precision-cut structural foam component, sandwiching it in fiberglass, injecting resin, and vacuum bagging it to create solid, precise, finished hulls, decks, and components for the boat. Truly solid and unsinkable. While center consoles are at the core fishing machines, the trend in sales is for expanded uses that translates to more amenities. Like the thick sun pad covering the forward casting deck, pop in the insert cushion and one can stretch out from the console jump seat. Twin swim platforms and a folding dive ladder make this a swim and dive friendly boat. Done with the water activities, the ladder stows away in the console compartment with head, where there was ample room for my 6-foot frame. And don't overlook the ski pylon for water sports on the T-top. Lunch and beverages for the gang are handled with ease in the top-of-the-line Yeti fiberglass cooler. Ready to fish from the factory, Everglades come with combing bolsters, storage for 4 rods in the gunnels, 4 rod holders in the side decks, and 6 rocket launchers on the T-top. Tackle, tools, and knives stow neatly away. Fold down the transom jump seats that flank the aerated 27-gallon live well, and you're ready to fish off the aft casting platform. The 60-gallon fully finished fish locker at the bow will handle a day's catch for a full crew. The T-top is solid with LED lighting, floodlights, speakers, and finished underneath to match the hull color to cancel glare. For those hot days on the water, you'll appreciate the patented sliding safety glass windscreen. The helm is well designed with the Garmin shot plotter ideally centered. Heading out to the open water, it took only a minute to get comfortable with the helm, easily reaching for trim tab and other controls. With the Yamaha F300 finally warmed up in the November cold, it was time to hit the throttle. The Yamaha accelerated the 230 to 20 miles per hour in 4.95 seconds and to 30 in 6.83. Impressive. High-speed runs in the wind averaged 44.2 miles per hour at 6,100 RPM, slightly off the factory number of 49.9. 3,500 to 4,000 RPM saw cruise speeds of 27 to 31 miles per hour, burning a modest 37.5 to 49.2 liters per hour. With a length overall of 23 feet 7 inches and a variable dead rise that averages 36 degrees, 19 at the transom, the ride was soft and solid. The Everglade banked steadily into the turns, coming around smoothly with little throttle input.
The hull handles beautifully. It rides very well, and as they promised with the construction, it's absolutely dead silent. There is not a squeak, not a rattle, not a sound of the water coming through here to the helm. Overall, I'd rate this as top of its categories, and if you're looking for a center console, you really should be looking at an Everglade before you make up your mind.
Closed captioning for PowerBoat Television is brought to you by BoatBuys.com. Ready to buy? Then head to BoatBuys.com, where you will find thousands of new and used boats for sale. Here's this week's My Boat feature.
If you've ever operated one of the larger new pontoon models, you know that they're a bit of a challenge around the docks when it's windy. There's a lot of side windage and very little pontoon in the water. So this week on my boat, we're going to install a cure for that handling problem, a retractable bow thruster made for pontoons.
Like all SideShift thruster kits, the PT230 pontoon kit is comprehensive. All you need to add will be battery cables, terminals, an additional battery if desired, and marine sealant. The thruster is installed at the bow, dead center on a twin pontoon, or between the center and outer pontoon on the helm side of a triple. To locate the thruster, you will need help, so I drafted Mark Houle, president of SideShift, for the gig. The unit has pre-drilled mounting slots, so some quick measurements will determine which ones to utilize depending on the spacing of the pontoon's cross members. As well, the center line for the unit is measured and marked on the cross members. Then the center is marked on the unit. After applying some of the supplied Loctite to the self-tapping screws, lift the thruster into position and, if possible, clamp it into place with vice grips. Then drive the 4 screws, first at the front, then at the rear of the thruster, to securely fasten it to the frame.
Next thing we're going to take on is installing everything that controls the system, and of course the main component here is the motor control unit. We're going to find a place for it. One of the best places in a pontoon, obviously, is here under a seat close to the battery.
Knowing where the motor control unit will be installed, we next unrolled the thruster cables, blue actuator cable, and motor vent line and taped the bundle together to facilitate the run aft. Feeding the cables and vent along the top of the pontoon on the trailer was far easier than fishing wires inside of hulls on the projects I've worked on before. Next, the hole saw was used to drill a 1 1/4 inch hole through the deck to run the cables up into the locker where we would be installing the motor control. After stuffing myself into the helm console, Mark fed me the actuator cable from below through an existing wiring hole for connection to the actuator control. Back in the locker, we placed the control unit adjacent to the control box and fished the cable through to the helm. After cutting the length for the main battery cables, the cable ends were stripped, heat shrink was slipped onto the cables, and the compression terminals were installed. In the field, you will find a butane torch handy. On to the wiring. First, the switch 1 and 2 wires were connected to the control box. Next, the motor cables were connected. A 50-50 shot here on getting them right for port and starboard thrust. Next, the main battery cables and power wires from the control unit are connected to the negative and positive battery terminals. For safety, terminal boots were secured over the terminals and secured with zip ties. Then the control box and control unit, essentially a wireless receiver, were secured to the deck with stainless screws. The last task for this part of the install was to connect the main battery cables to the battery and secure them in the locker. At the helm, a location for the joystick was selected and the template label was pressed into place. After drilling a pilot hole, a 2.5 inch hole saw was used to create the main cutout. After cleaning up the mess, the hole in the actuator control was cut and smoothed with a Dremel rotary tool, then the control switch was snapped into place. Back under, or more appropriately in the helm, the positive and negative power feeds to the control module were connected to a spare switched power supply, and the actuator cables from the control box and control switch were plugged into the module. Again, I had to crawl into the console to secure the module, the wiring, and feed the joystick cable through its hole. Plugging in the cable and securing the joystick to the helm with silicone completed the install.
Well, we got the boat in the water. The installation went quite well, so now it's time to put the SideShift bow thruster through its paces. We'll start with powering the system up and lowering the unit.
After a few minutes of practice, I was able to walk the pontoon sideways with the SideShift thruster and the outboard motor.
Now, another nice feature of the system is this remote control, wireless control. So you can be anywhere on your pontoon and control the thruster.
Time for Fooditis, brought to you by Boats and Places magazine. See the digital edition at boatsandplaces.com.
Baja boats started in 1971, their very first model being built in an abandoned roller skating rink. And over the years, they developed a reputation for making high-quality, high-performance sport boats. And if you're like me, when you hear Baja, you think the offshore style. But this week on Fooditis, we're going to look at something a little more cottage-friendly. We're going to check out this 2004 Baja 202 Islander. From the swim platform and sun pad up to the multiple seats, it looks like a standard issue cottage runabout. The bow lounge is roomy for a 20-foot boat with a beam under 8 feet. There's a stereo on the passenger side of the cockpit with protective cover and speakers throughout the boat. There's storage at the bow, including roomy compartments under both bow cushions. But where you'll notice a difference between your neighbor's runabout and this starts right about here. The 5-liter 260 horsepower Mercruiser MPI stern drive power plant packs more than a punch, it's an uppercut. Controlled from the high-performance styled helm with racing-inspired shifter and throttle, even the rocker switches look high-performance, all seeming abundantly appropriate when you finally cast off and take it for a run. When I said this is the more cottage-friendly model, that's true. There's the bow rider, there's a bench at the back, maximum capacity of 8 people, and you can trailer it if you want to. But make no mistake, this is a Baja in the guts. In the right conditions, you'll need a little bit of chop to bounce across to max out the speed, and with the wind behind you and ideal fuel levels, you can hit just about 60 miles an hour if you really push it, but we topped out at 54.3 miles per hour when we did our test runs, but that was with 2 people on a flat and small lake. There's a lot of power here, but it's not designed for jackrabbit starts and takes a little bit to get going, nearly 10 seconds to hit 20 miles per hour. But from there you're off. Just 2 more seconds and you've cracked 30 and you're climbing fast. You can cruise at 25 miles per hour at 3,000 RPM, but let's face it, if you have a Baja, you're likely to prefer cruising in the 3,500 to 4,000 RPM range or higher when you're running in the mid to high 30s. The trim lever is within finger's reach of the wheel, which is good so you never have to take your hands off the controls when running, even to correct porpoising. And once you find that sweet spot, you're in for some fun. Not only is this fast and furious in straight lines, it handles well too. Suffice it to say, this little Baja is a big load of fun. And with all the room for the family. The 202 Islander is loud and the graphics are flashy, but that's what you want in a boat like this. You're not looking for subtlety. And who cares about the slower hole shot when you have a powerful top end like this? Now, a lot of people say they like boating and cottages to get away from it all. Well, if you want to get away from it quick, get in a Baja. Welcome back to PowerBoat Television, day 2 of our Niagara adventure. Today we're in Niagara on the lake, and if you haven't been here, it's worth the trip. It's beautiful. There's wineries, there's orchard, beautiful architecture, the Shaw Festival Theater, Fort George. Just a beautiful little town on the historic Niagara River. But we're PowerBoat Television, we're not here for orchards, and we already did the wineries. So what's today all about? Check this out. The famous Whirlpool jet boats. There's 8 of these custom boats on the river, departing from 3 different locations, but all ending in the same spot, the Whirlpool. They've been in operation since '92 and now take more passengers in a single day than they did that entire first year. The biggest boat holds 54 passengers and is powered by 3 1,500 horsepower Volvo Penta turbo diesels.
We have kids as young as 4 to 6, and we've had guests on our boat as old as 80. So pretty much families, grandparents, corporate groups, schools. The great thing about jet boating is that everyone can enjoy it.
Their main dock is Niagara on the Lake, and their biggest boat is this one. They all have flat bottoms to spin around, and it's also self-bailing, which is very handy.
Hundreds of thousands of gallons go over Niagara Falls every minute, and it gets funneled into the narrow Niagara Gorge and creates the incredible whitewater rapids that we take our trips on. So there's more water that goes on the Niagara River than that goes through the Grand Canyon, actually.
And you will get wet on this ride. I love me some boating, and I've been behind the controls of some pretty powerful machines, but this is something else. Which of course meant that we had to give our respect and thanks to Captain Mike. As we dried off and changed, another group signed up and shipped out. But we didn't leave before we collected our whirlpool video. That was enough intense action for one day, so it was back to the quiet refuge of St. Catharines Marina. It's located at the mouth of the Welland Canal with 180 slips for both seasonal and transient boaters. Close to bike trails and far enough from major roads to avoid the noise of traffic, this is a great stop to relax and replenish. Their service department and store may be small, but it's loaded. Only 3 of us came back to the marina, and we decided to head right back out on the water. Dave said he had to go back and do farm chores, a convenient excuse. I think all he wanted to do was stay on dry land after surviving those rapids and whirlpool. In any case, Shauna, Jay, and I left the serenity of St. Catharines Marina and cruised west past the canal a few clicks to Port Dalhousie. It's a popular spot for transient boaters with multiple bars and restaurants and a small but popular beach. For us, it was dinner at the highly recommended Pier 61, right on the water. Here we met my mom and stepdad, who are going to spend a few days with us. We talked about the food, as always, and the jet boats, but the Welland Canal kept coming up. I mean, it's right there. As we got back on the boat and slid out of Port Dalhousie and back into the lake, we all came to the same conclusion. We've got to do it. Join us next week as we take on the Welland Canal and join the big Lakers and freighters as we transit one of North America's most important waterways.
Watch the show on broadband, or for any questions or comments, visit us at PowerBoatTV.com or follow us on Twitter and Facebook.